Hello! The project I want to talk with you today is the Dell Config Hub in version 1.0 for Dell Client Management Tools. Dell Client Management Tools means all you are using normally in enterprise environments for maintaining devices, change settings, give users options to change something, but I will come back on this later. If you have any questions or ideas, let me know. You find my details here. Our best option is to reach me by Twitter, but let us start first. Agenda for this video is, let's talk a little bit about the concept about the Dell Config Hub. I give you some overviews, how complex, easy it is to starting with the solution, and how it looks like. So we're starting the process. I will show you on the demo machine how you can send in configurations to devices. Let's talk about the concept of the Config Hub. So the central port or information or central component is the Dell Config Hub agent on the machine. It's based on PowerShell yet. In the past, some customers don't want to run specific services from vendors. So the idea behind is make it flexible as possible. So you don't need to run a specific software from us to maintaining your devices. Yeah, short correction, you need to run the common application you want to configure, but you don't need to have an additional software. In later cases, it could be that we're changing the PowerShell script to services, but not yet. Because I believe if you like the idea, but you want to change something, it's much easier to do this by you using my PowerShell script and change something than like asking for feature requests, you know? So the idea behind this is we have a central component as PowerShell running on the client, and we have our Dell main tools normally will be configured. First, the DCU, Dell Command Update, DO, Dell Optimizer, DDM, Dell Display Manager, and since more than 30 years, BIOS is every time a problem or on the list for deployments, so we do it like here. If we have some cases where BIOS or DCU needing the information about a BIOS password, I have generated for a couple of months a project based on Microsoft Key Vault where you're storing unique passwords, and the hub is using this project to collecting the right informations and hand over to BIOS or hand over this information to DCU. Monitoring, I'm doing it in my environment by my Azure Monitor or named Log Analytics. With this solution, you have a plug-in in tools like Intune as example. And I want to extending this in the next few months too. From the configuration space, the idea behind the Dell Config Hub is don't using any complex processes. All behind is managing by your company, and it's still existing. So there's nothing new. You don't need to change your working. You don't need to creating syncs to any platform. So we are using the Dell tools you normally use and generating JSON, XML, CTDK files. We have an ADMX as central component for assigning policies. We can use the static or dynamic routes of Azure Directory, so you don't need to maintaining different platforms. You don't need to log in on platforms. maintaining devices. You can do it directly from tools like Group Policy Editor or like Intune Management. So it's pretty easy. All you can see here, and this is the idea behind that, is managing by you. So you can change, you can make a decision. I don't want to use Azure Monitor, I am using Splunk. Do it, please. It could be that you need to be adjust a little bit about the agent, but it's transparent from the source code. You can change everything you want, but all is managed by you. All is secured by you. So you don't need to have your CSO to asking if he allows you to connect to any platform or give platforms access to your Azure directory. So this is the idea behind that. In the next few minutes, I will explain to you how you can prepare this environment, how you can managing this environment, and how it will look like. So I'm pretty sure you will have later on some questions. Don't hesitate. Give me contact, or if you have great ideas, please share it with me, and I will looking if we can extending this in a later version. The idea of the Dell Config Hub is to using existing Dell tools to pre-configure these Dell tools, exporting the files which define the configuration, and import this data. So what does it mean? I can use a master system where I configure all settings I need, make an export of the file, put the file on the central store I created, and this, please keep in mind, could be in the cloud, it could be on-premise, it is your storage. I come back a little bit later about that. So the first tool we want to look on is the Dell Command Update, which allows you to managing BIOS updates, firmware, driver updates, and the kind of stuff for the Dell business clients. So the easiest approach is, if you are not working on the command line, is to do it by the user interface. So the first is you need to identify your application, named Dell Command Update. Please run as administrator, otherwise it doesn't allow you to change any settings. So now you can go into settings and change everything like you want. So you can change specific filters, like I don't want to have optionals. Say okay. Only what doesn't work is the BIOS password. This will be not supported, and the reason of it's security relevant, which means if you have an export where you can see the password in the clear text, it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, my recommendation is to use a unique password on your machine, so you need definitely another solution for handling that. I come back also on the solution I'm providing for a couple of months as well. So we have now finished, and now we can go to export. It allows me to save the information. So we're going to our temporary folder by creating it here, click Save. Say OK, that's all. So now we have here a finished XML file. And Dell Config Hub could be work on that without any problems. If you don't want to do it by the user interface, you can do the same stuff. I do it a little bit bigger. And you can start in your command line interface for DCU with configure and export settings to your folder you want. Say yes, I want. It's run very well. So again, we're looking back to the folder, and we have a second file. Both files are showing the same stuff. We can open this, how it looks like. And we can see its version, date, settings are the same. So it's up to you which are the most familiar approach for, you have to using command line to exporting or using the UI as master. It works and you can use it. In the last chapter, we talked about Dell Command update, how you can create an XML file with all settings. Please beware, come back to my informations. It doesn't work with BIOS passwords. Also, it means you need to have another approach for that. The Dell Config Hub will handling this with a solution I'm creating for a couple of months based on Microsoft Key Vault. It's a part of Azure. I will come back on later. Now we want to start to configure the client BIOS. There are some different options you can do at Dell hardware to manage the BIOS settings. One of the historical is the Dell Command Configure, or named CCTK. The other approach would be do it by PowerShell. It will be named Dell PowerShell Provider. And the last one is the Dell Command Monitor, which allows you to monitor hardware, but also to change BIOS settings by WMI. All new devices since 2018 supporting WI BIOS settings natively, which means I don't need to have any one of the 3 applications to change a BIOS setting from a machine which are built 2018 or newer. But we want to make it easier for you. So we have here on my administration machine the Dell Command Configure installed. The only what we're using here is to use the export file and hand over this to the Dell Config Hub, which means you don't need to have an installation on any specific software on your client. You're using only this user interface to creating the settings you want. So you can creating multi-packages for different Dell machines. You can creating a local package which are specific to one machine. You can using a recommended package. So if we're going to creating a local package, this could be ignored because my machine has a BIOS password. I don't need it later in the export file, so I can cancel this. But now I can change BIOS settings if I want. Can check for, like say terminal or wake on LAN or PC, force PC. So we make edit. We want to have a specific settings for PXA. We enable this. We can do it also with other solutions. Let's take this other one. Stealth mode, disabled. However, it's only for experience to show how it works. Now we can click to export config. You see here I get a name for that with the machine and the password, password service tag. Now we can go to temp and save the settings. See it named CCTK. We can save it. And now we look on the folder and we're looking in this file by Notepad. And there we can see we have a lot of different settings. The Dell Config Hub will be working on all the settings, so you can use this file with any changes. And this is all what you need to prepare a file or a BIOS setting template for your clients. You can do it with different settings. Again, the BIOS password will be handled by later. I will talk a little bit more about this by my concept with Microsoft Key Vault solution I created for a couple of months. And that's it. Okay, next one we'll want to look on the Dell Optimizer. I have shown you how you can exporting settings by the DCU. You can creating new configuration files by the Dell Command configure. And the Dell Optimizer has also the option to exporting settings. So you can start with one client, configure whatever you want. My recommendation is do it by module base or model base. So this means Optiplex, precision, latitude, or latitude 5430 as example, in reason of not all application or all settings working on all machines. So make me an example. Analytics is a precision only feature. So doesn't work on latitude. So if you're creating these files, you can change everything like you want. As example, I go to Power Manager and changing the thermal management if I want. Then it's finished. The only you can't exporting are the applications, because the idea behind is users are setting these informations for learning, but I'm pretty sure a lot of companies will set some core applications for learning too. This will be covered later by the ADMX file, explaining you in detail how it works later, but is not part of the file we are creating now. So if we have created everything in the UI, we are finished. We can close the application. If you don't want to starting it by application, you can do the same. You can configure the values on the command line interface. But now we have the point, we have everything's finished, we can start with the export. Then we can do this by starting the command line, Dell Optimizer command line, value get or command get value export file and give it a name. The name in my case, I will name it DO Precision, which means the Dell Optimizer Precision Profile, so I'm aware for which machine I have done. I'm say, okay, that's all. And now, okay, it delivers me a return code 0, which means it's finished. Now it's a little bit challenging, so we need to find this name, and the best point is looking in program data. And there is an encrypted ID file. You can see there's also shows folders Optimizer 2. We're going in this folder and we see, there's the Dell Optimizer. The reason why we're doing this is to secure this folder. If you're looking on 100 machines, this folder, the main folder, will be different. So now we are looking on, and we see here we have an import-export file folder. Looking, and we find our file here. And now we can use this file, copy it to our ctemp we created for a couple of times. Copy here, and that's it. This means also the file need to copied by the Dell Config Hub in the same folder. This will be managed by my script, so you don't need to change anything in the script, because this will be the import folder where the Dell Optimizer expecting the file later. So this is how it works. And now we go to the next chapter. Now we have created the configuration files. On the How you can assign this as policy by an ADMX, I will do a couple of minutes later. Now we need to talk about first what I can do with these files. So my scenario, but it could be changed if you want. I'm using a cloud-based storage where I'm storing the files. But you can use it again on your USB stick. You can do it by a file server in-house, whatever you want. It needs to only secure that the client or the Dell Config Hub process could be later access the files. If not, the settings will not deploy. So this is the reason why I say I make a choose for a cloud space. So I'm created a blob storage. I give them a name matched to my project named Dell Config Hub. There I have a container. The container is my config master where all my files are stored. And here you can see I have uploaded some created stuff. One for BIOS settings, a BIOS settings for my precision workstation. I have the exported DCU, a Dell Command update configuration file. I have a display manager file for the P2720DC display. So you need to find a solution where you can understand which file are including which settings. So my learning best cases are give them a name BIOS CCTK and the reason of file name or BIOS, DCU for Dell Command Update, DDM for Dell Display Manager, DO for Dell Optimizer. And then I'm normally using special names like DO Precision, which means it's including the analytics part as well from the settings, and as example, display name. But up to you. If you want to use this later for your environment, you find everything you need for the ADMX here. It's a full fart, copy and paste in the policy later, and the client could be accessed the data. In my area, I'm working with the container as read-only mode, but if you want to have more security, you can have an access control policy for that, working with Azure Directory user and system accounts, whatever you want, or certificates to secure the data. A specific other part we need to talk about is the key vault sheet I'm creating here. I go back to my GitHub. Sorry, wrong browser. To my GitHub. And there I've stored a template too. You can use it because I don't want to have any tenant ID, secure client values in my script and see later in the logging. So this is the reason why I put it in a file, and the process of the config hub is reading the file and get the information over this port. So I don't want to go deep dive in the key vault area, but the key vault is the central part of the BIOS passwords. So if you have machines running with BIOS passwords, and you don't want to change my script, which means set in a static password or using your own solution, you can adjust and join my project. Key vault BIOS password. This project, including also a script you can use in Intune or other solutions, and will be generated a central container in Microsoft Key Vault for each of my machines. So at the end, I have a unique password on all machines. It could be based on a static and unique key. It could be that you full randomized as you want, with a version, different versions, so that you understand when you have changed the password, what the convention of the or the value of the old password in case of you have any issues, and how you can set up. You will find every kind of stuff here. So if I'm saying you want to using BIOS passwords for the DCU, if you're using BIOS authentication or BIOS settings, you don't want to change anything, please use this project, right? So now we have everything on the storage. Go back to this. You can do it by ever you want. You can build thousands of different configurations if you want to use it later, but you find the value for the process here for each file, put in another ADMX file later, and you finished. This is what we need on the storage side. It's pretty easy. And the good one on the solution, if I'm looking on other projects on the market, you don't need to give Dell or other vendors any access to your configuration files. All of these processes could be managed in your own environment without any integration of other vendors. So it makes, from the security perspective, very easy to working on, because you are responsible for your own security, right? So this is what you need to do. So we have the configuration files, we have uploaded the files. I show you now the ADMX file, how it works, and later the process, how it works on the client side. Okay, let's start this section. So in this point, we want to look on the policy deployment on the client. The idea is to give customers the opportunity to have a central application where you can changing policies, which we affected later by the Dell Configuration Hub. So since December last year, 2022, Microsoft is supporting ADMX imports. So this gives me the idea why I don't choose an ADMX file to providing different settings, profiles to a client. Because it's offered me the option to do it by group policy, and I can do it native by Intune, which allows me to do the same kind of stuff like customers want with DCFI or other solutions. And so I have the option to do on managing my clients on the policy. Everything you need, you will find on the Dell Configuration Hub. So if we're going in, you will find here the requested file. The first is the PowerShell script. I come back on later on that. The other one is the keyboard file. I have shown you this, and it would be stored in the storage. And the last one is a folder with the ADMX file. So we can log in. Microsoft Intune supporting only the English policy version, so I'm creating only a language package for English. So we have the Dell Config Hub, ADMX, and we have the ADML Config Hub version, which allows me to working with that in Intune. So we can look at that, how it looks like and what you can do with this file. So let us start. We're going to devices, and we have there the option Windows, and we take configuration profiles. And now we can see here import of ADMX is supported. I have done with but we can look first how the import is working. So we're going to import, and we're clicking import, and now we can take the the ADMX. So I have it prepared here. So this is the ADMX. And now we're importing the ADML. So this is all we need. Click next. And if we have done this, I'll come back. In this case, we have an imported template. And that's it. You have a versioning on that. You can see the platform is supported. So everything is fine. So if we now want to configure our clients, we can create now a profile. Select the version, profile type, we're choosing templates. There you can find a lot often discussed version of the DCFI, firmware configuration interface. The idea I'm creating with the ADMX is to do the same kind of stuff with standard Dell settings in the future as well. So that will be covered one-to-one. And I put some additional settings I'm on where I'm learning in my projects customers are requiring this. So from the feature we are equal, but we use a different approach. That you can see, import administrative templates are also available under profiles. Now we can go and create. We say Dell Config Hub, right? Or give them a name you ever want. And now you can see here the structure of the ADMX. The other one is a Dell Command update file. Our product group have designed to configure the DCU. So this means I not integrated all of these settings in the Config Hub, only some other points which make sense and not part of the Dell Command update. So let us look. So we have 4 chapters. We're starting first with the BIOS. The only function are working yet is using the BIOS file you can look on, which allows me to enable and give me the option, the FAT to store where the files are available. This could be blob storage, it could be file, it could be USB stick, wherever you have. But only need to be secure, the client need to have available this FAT. In the future, and this is what I'm managing on DCFI, you will find a lot of different BIOS settings here as well. So this will be allows you to enable camera or other kind of stuff. But this is a little bit future. I hope next 2-3 months it will be finished by me, and then you will have the most configuration of BIOS available on this FAT, and you don't need to create a CCDK file if you don't want. Go back to the Dell Config Hub. We have the same stuff with the Dell Command update. So we have here the option to give the FAT of our XML FAT, file which are including all settings. Again, wherever you want. And I have another point based on the project I'm created for some months, which allows me to handling DCU updates with a management of update rings. So I have here the option to give a value between rings 0 and 7, which means some agents or some clients get updates earlier than other clients, and reason of a timer for that. This is a specific new project you will find as well on my GitHub. I go back to this. And you will find it here as DCU Ignore List Manager. If you have time, take a look at that. It's a very smart project. Some bigger customers are using this to maintaining their BIOS updates. Okay, and this is what we can do for the Dell Command updates. So it's pretty simple. The rest you can do by the DCU ADMX template, which are part of the installation of DCU since now. I can show you, if you're not aware, how you can find this. Dell Command, and there you have a specific folder where you can find this. And this allows you 95% of all Dell Command update settings to configure by an ADMX. Okay, last two chapters are Display Manager. Pretty simple. Give me the file path where I need to import. And the last one is the Dell Optimizer. Also again, where's the path of the JSON file? Do I want to deploy? Yes, I want. Okay, it's fine. And now I have here the section application. I'm starting some examples. These are not working yet, but it will show you that I have the plan to covering in the future all Dell Optimizer settings also in the ADMX. So you don't need more to uploading and managing the JSON file. And you have here the application learning. So app 1 to app 5 are the priorities. Let us look on application 1. So we have process name or profile name we need for the import. And this is what I can configure. Enabled the part of the process. And enable the profile name. Whatever you will name, this will be viewable in the Dell Optimizer later. If you have finished everything, you can assign it to all machines, or you have specific groups. I have, like, I want to use it only for Dell devices, and deploy this kind of stuff. If you have finished, you will see then your profile like I'm creating before, which gives you the results if all profiles are deployed or not, on which devices are succeeded, where's pending. Pending could be the device is not available yet. And if you're running this a couple of times, you will see it later here on the future feature you created, how many errors and how many conflicts you have. This is how the ADMX is working. You can do it native on the machine. You can use it by existing Active Directory processes with group policies if you want. If you don't want to work with an ADMX file, please take a look on it. It will be shows you. I can give you a little bit background. Where you can find the registry keys and you setting these values manually if you want. Okay, now we talked a little bit about how I can configure files, how I'm working with the ADMX file, where I can store the configuration files. Now let us do a live session with the Dell Config Hub. You can see us starting here the Visual Studio. So the background of the Dell Config Hub is a PowerShell script. In my conversation with other customers, most customers don't want any agents. They don't want running specific servers on the machine. So this was the reason why I'm choosing a PowerShell. A PowerShell is flexible. It could be run by Task Planner or Intune remediation or whatever. So at the moment it's PowerShell. If a lot of customers requesting in the future to do it as a service, I will think about. At the moment it's PowerShell and it will stay as PowerShell. So you're responsible to find your approach, how often you want to run the script, if you need to change something, right? Okay, let us look first in the sections you can choose and change as customer. The first is the variable section. There you have the option to enable or disable. This means the value should be $true or $false. So this means enabled or disabled. So we have different options. We have DCU settings, which means the file we are created will be imported and if we have a BIOS password on the machine, it will be contact the key vault solution I created and asking for the BIOS password of this machine and use the command line interface to set the password for DCU, which means this value will be stored in the registry as secure strings. So this is not visible for anyone and can only decrypt it on the machine where you're running the command line. The other option is the DO setting, which means we importing the JSON file we created with the Dell Optimizer. We're importing this. DO learning, app learning means that we have in the ADMX file some applications where we want to preset on the machines for learning in the optimizer. And this could be enabled, disabled. If it's enabled, he will look if there are any applications should be learned and will set it to the Dell Optimizer by command line. Then we have the Display Manager. Please keep in mind we're talking about Display Manager 2.0. Not all our displays are supporting Dell Display Manager 2.0, but this is the newest version and a new display supporting this as well. And there you have the chance to exporting settings if you want. And in this case, we will starting to read this file, importing the settings to the display. At the moment, it's display 1 only. The last one is the BIOS. The BIOS means we're taking this CCTK file created by Dell Command Configure, transform the CCTK strings to WMI. I don't want to push all settings on the machine. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking, as example, this specific way should be enabled. And then I'm checking on the machine, is it enabled? It is, so I'm give only information, it is enabled. If not enabled, so I have a difference between the my requirements and the machine, I would change the BIOS settings. So this means that only changed BIOS settings will be deployed on the machine. All others you get only a notice. The notice is at the moment in this PowerShell only on the terminal session. So you need to go looking in your logs where you find the protocol of this PowerShell. In the future, I have a lot of data, and my idea is to put the status in a Microsoft event, which allows me later to combine this with my log analytics projects. So I'm collecting, in this case, data of the PowerShell run and show it later in Microsoft Azure Monitor / log analytics. The last one you need to change is the key vault value. So this is the same storage where you stored your file in my case. And the reason for that is I don't want to have specific data about my tenant, key vault, secure client ID, everything like this. So it will be stored in an Excel sheet. This sheet will be open, remote. The application will look on specific fields, get the information from there. So I'm secure that I have no security relevant data. In my case of the blob storage I can use also certificates or Azure Directory authentications so that I have a secure access. At the moment I'm doing this by using a read-only mode for the files, but if you want to make a secure connection between your blob storage and your devices, and then you could be secure that your data could be not hacked. This is all you can change. If you're doing some issues like you're enabling DCU settings but you don't providing any policy for that, the PowerShell will understand there is no policy and will disabling this process, which means I want to reduce the quantity of errors. If you don't have a policy, the script doesn't run in this section. Okay, let us start this script. I put this a little bit up. We're doing it a little bit bigger, and we start the process. So the program will start. The first is we're checking if there are any policies are set on the machine or not. And then we're going step by step to the required settings. So in a normal basis means we're reading the folder of the configuration. If we have a configuration file, we're importing this file. So let us run this through this, and then I come back a little bit later to explaining how it works. But you can see you have here the sections. And keep in mind, only at the moment the protocol is in the part of the terminal session you're running the script. So at the end, we have a finalized installation with all settings. So what we can see here, I go a little bit up. First, again, we're checking if the policy is available or not. Then we are checking if there's a password on this machine. If yes, do we find in the keyboard a BIOS password? If yes, we take it and hand over this to the VCU process and the BIOS process. We're all time checking if there are bits enabled, specific folders are in place, and we're checking if the import of the files is working successful. So the same stuff we're doing with passwords, the same stuff we're doing with the optimizer. And we're also doing a kind of stuff like application learning. Here you can see we have application learning for the optimizer enabled, but there is the application existing on the machine, so we don't need to learn it again. So it's only for your information. The application should be learned, but you are in learning mode where it is available. The other process is then the BIOS. In the BIOS process, again, we're filtering some stuff or not happened with the BIOS settings. We're checking each time the WMI class of the setting, and we're also checking if there are any changes on the value. If not, you can see it will be only an information. If we have some changes, it could be that you're running an error. Then you need to investigate, because some errors could be that the machine need to pre-configure other BIOS settings first. So please look in that. If everything works fine or not supported, you get also information that BIOS settings are in the WMI not supported, so that you're knowing why you would try to set machine values, but you get no answer if it's set or not. And you have some values which are changed and get a successful information about if this BIOS setting is deployed. In my machine showcase I'm showing here, you can see we have done it with the BIOS password. So I get my data from the keyboard, authenticate the BIOS settings, and then I have an authenticated BIOS setting on the machine. So you can see it runs very quickly. And the last one, we're doing the same stuff with the Dell Display Manager. And at the end, the program is finished. So normally it takes seconds because the files of deployment or configuration are not very big. So it's good to run it in background. In my configurations, I'm using this as remediation. So I'm planning to run the script on a weekly basis, which means if I'm changing policies, I'll be secure it will be changed latest in 1 week. But you can do it by daily, hour-based, whatever you want. But please keep in mind, each program takes resources. It doesn't make sense to do it often, and you don't change every time. So the most I'm learning in my projects, BIOS settings will change one time, and the only point where you're running a BIOS configuration change are normally the BIOS password. And a lot of customers doesn't do it. I recommend do it on 6 monthly base, latest. But You know the business hard, you have not ever time. So the process behind a BIOS password is complex. It could be that I find environments in my customer space where you find BIOS settings set one time, you're ordering the device on 2023, and it will be changed, never be only deleted if this device will be retired. So it's not a perfect world, I know, but how it works. So this is the process, the script. You can change everything you want. It's open source, but it isn't supported by Dell support. So you can't write me if you have findings or ideas. I do my very best, but at the end, it makes sense that you're looking on with your technical guys if it works like you expected. Did you want to maintaining your own version of that? And also keep in mind, security is a big point for customers. If you want to run this script securely, it means you need to signing the script. It doesn't do it because I have no official certificate what I can providing and signing this document. So it's reducing for me more complexity. But at the end, if you want, make a sign of the script, put in the details, and then you can run the PowerShell on the secure base. I hope this will be an answer now what we have with the Dell Config Hub. I hope you enjoy, and I'm pretty sure there are a lot of ideas you will catch on. But believe we are doing a lot of stuff also full integration in Intune, but I preferred from my view most time using the connectors like Intune is giving me. Show my example by the ADMX. It gives me the flexibility to do everything I want. If I have an integrated solution, it means there's all time vendors need to communicate, and if they're doing some things, you can use it. If they don't communicate new things, it could be this take time before you can use new features. So, but anyway, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you have questions.